One day, while on a business trip abroad, my husband Tony sent me a message saying, "Let's get married." What's this? Apparently, he meant to send the message to his mistress but accidentally sent it to me, his wife. Ever since he transferred to a new department, his suspicious behavior had increased. He suddenly started saying things like, "This lotion is supposed to be good," despite never being interested in beauty products before. I had a feeling something was off then. Tony, who does neither childcare nor household chores, seemed to be completely immersed in his affair. I thought, how foolish can he be? Then, the message was quickly retracted. Tony must have panicked and deleted it after realizing the mistake. I would have loved to see his face at that moment. Of course, I took a screenshot, so it doesn't matter that Tony deleted the message. I immediately called Tony. "I saw your message just now." No, that message was. Even over the phone, it was easy to tell he was flustered. "But maybe you meant to say let's divorce?" After that, he would come to know the truth. "My name is Aileen Owen, I'm 34 years old. I've been married to Tony for 8 years. And we have a daughter in the 2nd grade named Brittany. Tony and I met through a friend's introduction. When I first saw a picture of Tony shown to me by a friend, I thought he was exactly my type and asked my friend to introduce us. He had thick eyebrows, a high nose, and a suntanned complexion. I've always liked people with what you might call a strong face. With a little push from my friend, Tony and I got the chance to dine together. The conversation went well, and we started dating immediately. Our relationship went smoothly, and about a year later, when I became pregnant, Tony said, "We're having a baby, shall we get married?" And I replied, "Of course. Please take care of me." That's how we ended up getting married. It wasn't a romantic proposal, but I was happy with Tony's proposal. Until I became pregnant, I worked as a web designer. But the morning sickness was so severe that I couldn't keep imposing on my colleagues and chose to resign. When I reported my resignation to my boss, he said, "It's truly sad to lose such a talented person like you, but your health comes first. If you want to come back after having the baby, feel free to contact me anytime." I felt truly blessed to have such supportive colleagues around me. Though I was sad, I prepared for childbirth. Eventually, I gave birth to a girl named Brittany. For a while, I didn't look for work and focused on being a full-time housewife, dedicating myself to household chores and childcare, but honestly, relying solely on my husband's salary was precarious. Therefore, when Brittany started kindergarten, I began part-time work at a supermarket. However, since I hadn't worked since Brittany's birth, I quickly became physically and mentally exhausted. Brittany was still young and I often had to pick her up from kindergarten because she was sick, which made me feel terribly guilty towards my colleagues. On top of that, Tony's neglect of household and childcare duties was tough. Wow, what's with this meat and potatoes? The carrots are too hard. I can't eat this. Sorry, but I'm going to throw it out. He seemed apologetic but casually threw out the meal I had made while busy. It was indeed harder than usual, but saying it was inedible was an exaggeration. With household chores, work, and childcare, I wish he would be a bit more forgiving. There were also times when he would come smiling and say, "The bathroom floor is a bit dirty. Could you clean it? Tomorrow is fine." If he noticed it, he should do it himself. That's how I feel about childcare too. When I asked my husband, which kindergarten should we choose for Brittany? A private one or the nearby public one, he replied, I don't know, Aileen, you decide." He leaves all childcare decisions to me. Tony doesn't see himself as a traditional, controlling husband at all. But he probably thinks he's being kind. Indeed, my husband speaks gently and isn't aggressive or rough. Both of us have rather calm personalities, so we never had any major fights while dating. That's why I didn't notice his hidden traditional traits until after we got married. The true nature of my husband gradually began to show after we started living together. The first time was when I cooked a meal for Tony. Wow, that was delicious. Aileen can really cook. Thanks for the meal. He said this with a satisfied expression and patted his belly, then just lay down on the couch, leaving his dishes on the table as if it was the most natural thing to do. I thought, can't he even carry his dishes to the kitchen? I remember being a bit shocked. Hey, at least carry your dishes. When I said this out of the blue, my husband looked surprised as well. From his expression, I realized he had never had to do anything at home. When I asked him to carry the dishes, he quickly got up and said, "Oh, I'll carry them." Although he would act as instructed if reminded, I always have to prompt him. When I was returning to work, I advised him, "I'll be working too now, so you need to help more with childcare and housework." However, Tony seems to have already forgotten this. I'm home. He would come home, throw his jacket on the sofa, and strip off his socks and shirt as he walked. There were enough of Tony's discarded items to trail through the house. Even our kindergarten-age daughter Brittany is better at tidying up than him. It's a common sight to see her scolding him, saying, "Daddy, you shouldn't leave things here." "Sorry, Brittany," he would start tidying up immediately after being scolded by our daughter. Though it's hard to say if he's truly remorseful. Having such a husband return home always makes me feel as if another big child has come back. And honestly, it's exhausting. Still, by repeatedly reminding him, both our daughter and I try to get along as a family of 3. I'm disappointed by my husband's lack of cooperation. But I've come to think that maybe this is just what marriage is like. Time passed, and before I knew it, our daughter was in the 2nd grade. And both Tony and I were 34 years old. With kindergarten calls behind us and childcare settling down a bit, I started a side job in addition to part-time work. I wanted to work in web design, my previous job. So I searched online and managed to increase our income by a few $100s a month. I never doubted that our ordinary days would continue this way. However, one day, my husband reported, "I've been transferred starting April." Tony works in the accounting department at the headquarters of a plumbing manufacturer. His company is inherently prone to nationwide relocations. It's not unusual for department or branch transfers to be ordered. So, I knew such a day might come, but it was still a surprise when actually announced. What? Does the transfer mean we have to move? No. Actually, I'm still at the headquarters. But I've been transferred to the newly formed Business Development Department starting in April. Really? That's good to hear. You had me worried for a moment.
Yeah.
Me too. When the manager told me about the personnel order, I thought, finally. It's my turn to be relocated and was ready to go alone. Tony laughed. In any case, I thought we would continue to spend time together as before. But about half a year after the department transfer, my husband started coming home much later. "Working late again today, so I'll be home late," he would say before leaving for work. "You've been really busy lately." Well, yeah. The department is new, so we're still figuring things out, and it takes time. I see. Just don't overdo it.
Oh.
Thank you. I'm heading out. It's natural that it takes time to get things in order when starting something new. I thought it would settle down after a while. However, the overtime never ended. Moreover, recently, the business trips increased, and often. He doesn't even come home on weekends. As these days continued, our daughter began to feel lonely and started saying, "I haven't been able to play with Daddy recently. Come home earlier." Why isn't Daddy home these days? It's tough on our young daughter. Thinking of our daughter feeling lonely made me realize that this couldn't continue. So, I said to Tony, "Hey, Brittany looks lonely every day. Can't you spend a little more time at home? Brittany is already in elementary school, right? She'll be fine on her own. She'll make friends and soon she won't be interested in me anymore." Sure, as Brittany reaches middle and high school, there will be many more distractions. Friends, and maybe a boyfriend, and she might spend less time at home. That's why it's important to cherish the time now when she wants to be with us. I felt frustrated by my husband's irresponsible remark. What kind of response is that? Can't you, as a father, think a little more about your daughter? She's saying she wants to be with you now. You haven't even taken her out to play recently. Think about her a little, will you? Seeing me turn red with anger, Tony let out a deep sigh and looked annoyed. What? I'm just working hard here. And yet you complain? It's not about that. What is it then? I'm tired. Don't nag me. You're just a part-timer, you wouldn't understand my position, right? If you have time to complain, perfect your cooking and cleaning first. What? Are you saying I'm not doing well? No, not really. Anyway, I'm busy. I'm leaving now. My husband then slammed the door with force and left the house. Just a part-timer. So he thought of me that way. Maybe it's all over if I'm just considered just a part-timer. But being a part-timer doesn't mean one isn't busy, right? I work from 9 to 16, 5 days a week, and when I get home, I do my best with childcare and housekeeping. I don't think I'm slacking off, but to my husband, it seems like I am. Our marriage has only deteriorated since his transfer. There's also something else about my husband's behavior that concerns me. It's how suddenly he has become interested in his appearance. Before, my husband had no interest in beauty care, using cheap men's face wash, and hardly ever using lotion. Yet suddenly, he started saying, "This cleanser really gets the dirt off your skin." I was surprised that he even knew the word cleanser. He also started using a popular Korean lotion after his bath, which was another strange behavior. Hey, what's going on? You never cared about beauty before. Huh? Oh. Some young people at work told me about it. I'm in my 30s now, I have to start caring about my skin. At first, I believed what my husband said, but one day, an incident completely shattered my trust in him. That day, as usual, he came home after midnight saying he had been working late and immediately rushed to the bathroom, saying, "I'm tired, I'll take a bath first." While I felt sorry for him being so busy, the notification sound from his smartphone, which he usually takes to the dressing room but seemed to have forgotten in his rush, went off. I glanced at the phone screen out of curiosity. The screen was unlocked, so I could read the full message displayed. "Today was fun, thank you for paying for the meal and the hotel. When will we meet again?" What is this? The sender's name was Candace, clearly a message from a woman. And from the content, it's obvious that Candace was with my husband just before he hurried off to the bath. Was he trying to wash off any trace of having met someone? Unbelievable. Were all those overtime hours and business trips lies? Ignoring a daughter who wants to play? Saying, "I'm busy with work," and secretly meeting with a lover? The word divorce popped into my head. But, as Tony says, I'm just a part-timer. Even though I started a side job, it hasn't taken off yet. And I've only increased my income by a few $100s a month. Thinking about Brittany advancing to middle school, high school, and university, I'm not confident I can support her on my own. Should I confront Tony or pretend I haven't noticed? prioritizing our daughter's happiness first? While Tony was alone in the bath, I decided to keep quiet after thinking it through by myself. If I pretend I haven't noticed, Brittany can continue to spend time with her dad as before. After a while, my husband came out of the bath. He picked up his smartphone from the desk, glanced at me with a "that was close" expression, but when I pretended to be oblivious, he seemed relieved and quickly focused on his phone. He had finished reading the message from Candace, and he seemed quite pleased. I noticed his mouth slightly curve up. I was so filled with anger that I thought about stabbing him with a knife from behind. But for now, I have to hold back. Then he asked, "Prepare my overnight bag for a business trip this weekend." While packing his bag, I found a hotel loyalty card in his suit jacket pocket. And he began talking about beauty products he'd never cared about before. "This mask is really good. I'll take it with me for the overnight stay. Put it in the suitcase." My pretending not to notice seems to have made him overly confident that his affairs are undetected. Alone in the living room, I sighed deeply, and my daughter covered my mouth, saying, "Mom, don't sigh. Happiness will escape." What a kind child she is. I adore Brittany so much. I remind myself that I must endure for her sake. After that, Tony frequently used work as an excuse. "At least bring in the laundry," I'd say, and he'd reply, "I'm tired from work." Laundry is women's work, isn't it? "Can you help Brittany with her homework?" I'd ask. I used my brain too much at work already. I don't want to do that even at home. The most common was this: "I'll be late today because of work." "Oh, and next week, I'll be on a business trip because of work." He blames work for his inability to do household chores or be home. But basically, it means, I enjoy cheating so I won't do anything. While thinking this, I reached for his suit that he had left scattered around. That's when I noticed a piece of paper in the pocket of the suit. It was a divorce form. What is this? And Tony's signature was already on it. He wouldn't have signed it if he didn't plan to submit it. Should I really not get divorced even after all this? Now, he's moving for Candace. Until now, my love for Tony made me feel shocked and sad about his infidelity. But as things have gotten this bad, there's no love left for him. I think only of Brittany, that's all, but it's the most important thing. I'll keep this divorce form safe until the time comes. Until then, I've decided to start preparing for divorce. The first thing I need to do is work. I'll have to raise Brittany on my own from now on. Being a part-timer at the supermarket, the financial aspect is honestly the biggest hurdle. How can I become a full-time employee? Where should I work? Then I think of one person who might become a strong ally. That is my former boss. My former boss, Rachel, a single mother. She raised 2 children while working. She might understand my situation to some extent. Even after resigning, I met with her about twice a year, and she was always very fond of me. But since I quit my job to have a child, I wonder if she would still be willing to hire me now. Honestly, it was hard to ask, but I called her in desperation. "Rachel, it's been a while." "Oh, Aileen. Long time no see." Rachel picked up the phone right away. "Actually, I've been going through some things. And it looks like I'm going to get a divorce." "What? Why all of a sudden? You seemed so happy together." Could it be? Rachel seemed to sense something. "Yes, that's exactly it. Tony has been having an affair. He wants a divorce. And so do I, but I have a daughter and I want to work as a full-time employee. Could you hire me again?" Rachel listened sympathetically and nodded. Then, after a moment of silence as if she were thinking deeply, "Well, let me talk to the HR department. Honestly, the company has been short-staffed and struggling. And someone with your immediate skills would be a blessing. Really? Thank you so much. I breathed a sigh of relief. But you have gathered solid evidence of the affair, right? Evidence of the affair? I've taken screenshots of his hotel loyalty card and line messages, but that's about it. That's not enough. You need more solid evidence to really make him suffer. I'll help you with that, as someone who's been through it. Experienced. As Rachel continued. It turned out that she had become a single mother because of her husband's infidelity too. She had hired a lawyer and gathered ample evidence for compensation. So the divorce proceedings went smoothly, and she received both child support and compensation. You need evidence to have an advantage in the divorce. Just messages aren't enough. You need multiple photos of him entering and exiting hotels or the mistress's house. Do I need that much? I had no idea. I was stunned. I didn't realize gathering evidence was so challenging. Don't worry. I'll introduce you to the private detective agency I used. I'll come with you, let's set a date. Rachel arranged for us to go to the detective agency the following week. And as promised, she came with me. She was as reliable as when we worked together. 6 months have passed. Yet, Tony hasn't brought up divorce with me. That was actually to my advantage. I am grateful that he gave me time to prepare for the divorce. My kindness will be to knock him down to the bottom. After all, this is all your fault for having an affair. Don't hate me for it? Thanks to Rachel's support over these 6 months, I was rehired as a full-time employee. The company appreciates my experience in web design and offered me a very favorable salary. And importantly, we have gathered plenty of solid evidence. When I hired the detective agency to collect evidence, they quickly got what we needed. Since Tony was getting cocky thinking I wouldn't catch on. They caught him in the act when he said he was working late or going on a business trip. What a fool. Unaware that his wife was preparing for divorce, Tony came home today. Scattered his clothes around and carelessly said, "Hey, I'm home. Get dinner ready." Before, such remarks irritated me, but now it's different. I smiled sweetly and said, "Today's dinner is your favorite, meatloaf." It won't be long before I say goodbye to such a big child. Strangely, when I thought about it, I felt nothing. Just when I was planning to take action, Tony told me, "I'm going on a business trip abroad starting tomorrow. I won't be back for 4 days." I thought, oh, so he's finally talking about a business trip abroad. I was impressed by Tony's bold move, so I decided to feign doubt and asked, "Does your company even have business trips abroad? I've never heard any of your colleagues mention going on one before." I wanted to see his troubled face. It just started this year. Looks like I'll be the first one to experience it." Tony replied with a forced laugh. "Oh? Are you going alone? Or is someone going with you?" Well, I'm going with a colleague." "Why do you ask all of a sudden? You never ask these things." Tony was clearly flustered. It was obvious he was hiding something. "Just curious. It's a rare opportunity abroad, so have fun." I smirked and left the room. I thought, I've decided. I'll carry out my plan while he's away on his business trip. I made up my mind. On the day of Tony's departure, he seemed unusually excited. Normally, he would have me prepare everything he needed to take, but this time he said, "I'll prepare it myself." I was certain he was probably planning to take a fake business trip with Candace. I thought, this is the perfect opportunity. Today, I will definitely divorce this man. About 2 hours after Tony left the house, the doorbell rang. The movers had arrived. When Tony mentioned his business trip, I targeted this day to arrange everything in advance. Please take all these items to this address. I plan to move all mine and Brittany's belongings to my parents' house. I had already informed my parents about everything. When I told them I was getting divorced and had been cheated on, they were quite shocked at first. But when they learned that I had changed jobs and hired a detective agency to gather evidence, they seemed to understand my determination. My father said, "If that's the case, come live with us. We'll take care of Brittany." Fortunately, my parents' house was not far from mine, so Brittany wouldn't need to change schools. I decided to take up their offer and live with them. Of course, I had already informed them about moving today. While I was discussing with the movers and preparing, Brittany was being looked after by my parents. Our belongings were relatively few and the move was completed in one day. The next day, I started to unpack and settle into my parents' house. Brittany was happy to be living with her grandparents, saying, "I'm looking forward to this. Girls are amazing." Without me having to say anything, she would tidy up on her own and help clean the room. Every day, I'm surprised by how much she has grown. I had already told Brittany that we would be apart from Daddy. "Will you be okay without Daddy? Won't you feel lonely?" When I asked her, she said, "Not at all. I don't like Daddy because he doesn't love me. No matter how much I ask, he never wants to be with me. What kind of father makes his daughter say such things? It boils my blood." Brittany's words only strengthened my resolve to divorce. As I finished all the preparations, the day Tony was supposed to return approached. "What time are you coming back?" I texted Tony and waited for a reply. However, even after a few hours, there was no response. I thought it was strange and waited patiently until I noticed the notification sound on my smartphone. "Is it Tony?" I thought, as I pulled out my phone and looked at the screen. There was a shocking message displayed. It made me exclaim aloud, "What the?" It was a message from Tony saying, "It was really fun. This trip to Hawaii was like a honeymoon for us. Let's get married after things settle down." Does he mean we'll get a divorce once things settle down? How stupid can this man be? To mistakenly send such a message to me, the worst person he could possibly send it to, instead of his intended recipient. It's so ridiculous that I can't help but laugh. Soon after, the message was retracted. Tony must have panicked and deleted it when he realized his mistake. I would have loved to see his face at that moment. Of course, I took a screenshot, so it doesn't matter that Tony deleted the message. I immediately called Tony. "Hey, Tony. I received a message from you proposing marriage. What does that mean exactly?" I asked. Tony was clearly flustered and stammered, "No." You saw that?" "Yes, I saw it clearly. But I'm curious. It's strange, isn't it? Perhaps you meant to say, 'Let's get divorced,' instead of a 'let's get married'? What? How was your affair trip? Did you enjoy your time lying to your wife and daughter and spending time with your mistress?" That is, well." Tony stumbled over his words, clearly distressed by my questioning. At this point, the answer was clear. Candace was indeed his mistress. And she was the one Tony was always interacting with on his phone. "So, you want a divorce, right?" "Wait. Let's talk about this properly." "There's nothing to talk about. We're already divorced, after all." "What?" Actually, on the day Tony left for his so-called business trip, which was actually an affair trip, I had already filed for divorce at the city hall. Thanks to Tony having already signed the papers, the divorce was processed immediately. "You're lying. You can't just divorce me like that." Oh, but you prepared it, didn't you? It was in your suit pocket. The completed divorce form. Even over the phone, I could hear Tony starting to panic. You didn't actually submit that divorce form, did you? Yes, I did, just as you wished. That was not. I mean, let's talk when I get back, okay? I told you, there's nothing to talk about. With that, I hung up without waiting for his reply. After that, I received numerous messages from him begging to reconsider, claiming the divorce form was just to show his girlfriend, and that he was momentarily possessed by an evil spirit. I ignored all of them. Hours later, Tony called again, probably having just arrived home. Despite my reluctance, due to his persistent calling, I finally answered the phone. What? Is there something you still need? Hey. What is this? Why are yours and Brittany's things gone? And this picture? Didn't I tell you we're divorced? We can't live together anymore, can we? And did you like the picture? It turned out quite nice, I laughed mockingly. In fact, I had framed a photo of Tony and Candace walking arm in arm and placed it in the living room. What about Brittany? She must be upset about being away from me. She kept calling for her daddy. I scoffed. Brittany said she hates you, Tony. You're the one who's been neglecting her feelings, aren't you? That's a lie. And you're just a part-timer. How are you going to raise her on your own? Oh, Tony, I'm working full-time now and my salary is quite good, so don't worry. Since when? I haven't heard anything about that. There was no need to tell you since you're never home. I have all the evidence I need. Make sure you pay compensation and child support. And please say hello to Candace for me. With that, I ended the call again. Despite further calls, I blocked his number and set his messages to be rejected. Later, thanks to Rachel's recommended lawyer, Tony was ordered to pay $15,000 in compensation to me and $8,000 in damages to Candace. Moreover, a legal arrangement was made for Tony to transfer $500 each month for child support until Brittany turns 20. If Tony fails to pay, the lawyer has assured that they will enforce collection or seizure. Candace, faced with a claim for damages, and her parents finding out about her affair with a married man, was advised to break up with Tony, which she did. It seems her feelings weren't strong enough to continue the relationship despite everything. Internally, I thought, serves you right. As for me, my work has been going very well. What started as a side job has now become too busy to handle, because my main job has become so demanding. Returning to a workplace where systems and facilities had changed considerably was initially shocking. But I've managed to keep up and am giving it my all. For the sake of my beloved Brittany, for Rachel who supported me, and for my parents who have been my backbone. I am determined to succeed in my job and repay their kindness.